Okay, so this happened to me when I was around 18 or 19 and just started college in a small town in the South. I had a pretty terrible college experience in general, but this just added to the shit show that was my first year. To set the scene, I lived in a sweet building with a parking garage attached to it. There were probably 4 or 5 levels to this garage, and the top level was at ground level. The sweet building was about a 5-minute walk down a sidewalk to the entrance. There was also a little room with windows that housed the elevator nearby the sidewalk. My boyfriend at the time lived off campus, and I hated being on campus so much that I spent a lot of time at his house in a neighboring town. I did have an 8 a.m. class though, so I would usually at least go back to my suite at some point in the night or early morning if I could. One night, I'd just gotten back at around 2 a.m. The parking garage was pretty full on this night, and I had to park at the furthest end of the building, closer to the ramp that went to the lower levels. Closer to the ramp that went down to the lower levels. I'm terrified of being inside parking garages for long times, so usually I'd always park at the top. It was pretty dark out. I would also usually call my sister or my boyfriend if I was spooked. This night was pretty normal though, so I didn't really feel the need to bother them yet. I was almost to the sidewalk when I noticed someone in the little room where the elevator was. They had been hidden behind a wall, but after I passed them by, I saw them emerge. It seemed he'd come out as soon as he thought I wouldn't notice him, since I wasn't able to see him through the windows there. I didn't get a great look at him, but I could tell it was a middle-aged man. I found it quite odd such a person would be on campus so late at night, and in the building where there were mostly only young people and freshmen as well. I tried my best to just ignore this person and continue on my way. As I reached the nearby sidewalk though, about 20 feet away, I could see he was more brazenly following me now, walking right behind me. I tried my best to be rational and not freak out. The further I walked though, the more I realized he was now gaining on me. There was one of those posts nearby where you could hit a button for campus police, but something inside of me told me that I had to not let him know I knew he was there, and that he was also scaring me. In a few seconds' time, I had to make a decision. I started to sprint down the sidewalk. Right from behind me, I could hear him pick up speed and start running on the pavement as well. He was chasing me. There were 3 entrances to this building. Usually I used the furthest one because my room was on the far side of the building. As soon as I got to this first entrance though, I swiped my card as fast as possible, threw open the door, and slammed it shut behind me. The man was right there, right on the other side of that door. He made eye contact with me for a while, then turned and sprinted the other way and out of view. I was so fucking scared that night. And still to this day, I wonder what his intentions really were. Probably for the best I never had to find out. The very next morning, I woke up to an emergency email about a strange man that had been spotted on campus the previous night. Still gives me creeps whenever I think about it. I'm a fairly small 18-year-old girl, and this happened on a Saturday night literally just last week. My friend Leia and I attended a football game, but somewhere through the night we got pretty bored. We decided to head to a haunted house with our friends Tara, Dawson, and Emma instead. It was a haunted corn maze, and we had a blast honestly. Eventually though, the night started to wind down, and me, Leia, and Terry decided to go back to Terry's dorm room so the hangout could continue for a bit longer. We had dyed Leia's hair and were currently watching a movie when we heard 3 loud slams echo on the door suddenly. Terry's roommate went to go and check who it was. We heard someone grunt, then saw a man whom none of us recognized shove their way past the door and into the bathroom. We were all completely confused. We poked our heads out the door, only to see Terry's roommate laid out on the floor. The man had pushed him to the ground just to enter the common area of the room. All of us agreed we had no idea who this person was. We started laughing together and making jokes about the situation, because that's just how we coped with it at the time. Terry's roommate went to go tell the front desk that someone had come into our room and started taking a shower. Again, it was a Saturday night, so we assumed this man must just be drunk or something, and perhaps had the wrong room. Eventually, though, we started to hear rustling in the bathroom and loud scratches and bangs coming from the door. We started to get a bit scared at this point, so we locked ourselves in Terry's room together. Eventually, we heard the bathroom door burst open, and we all turned toward the locked door to this room. We jumped as the man began to slam on the door with his fists. He was breathing so deeply and heavily, we could hear it from the other side of this thick door. Leia and I screamed as the banging got louder and louder. He began to throw his entire body weight against the door. Terry was in the back corner of the room as they were starting to spiral into a panic attack. We had no clue what was going on. At first, we thought it must just be a drunk guy, but no guy who's hammered out of his mind has enough coordination to take a running start into a door. Finally, the banging stopped. We thought the man must have left for a moment, but we didn't dare leave the room to check. It was silent for a whole 3 minutes before a weird scratching noise started on the door. It sounded like the man was scraping his fingernails against it, like a dog trying to be let into a house. "Let me in," he whispered. "Please, let me in, please! I know you're in there! Let me in, damn it!" He began to yell and slam against the door again. How was no one else in this dorm floor hallway coming to help us? Fear was crawling up my body. I didn't know what to do. I have a stress disorder I take medication for, and this was not the ideal situation for me to be in. I slid down the floor and wall and sat on the floor with my head in my hands to try and calm myself. It had been 10 minutes since Terry's roommate went to get campus security. We finally called the front desk of the dorm as well. Apparently, they had already called security the moment my roommate had gotten down there, so why was it taking them this long to get here and help? The man continued to try and break down the door for another 10 minutes. Just as we really thought he was going to break through, and the hinges were starting to shake. About 25 minutes after we'd initially asked for help, campus security finally arrived. They sat the man down and started to have a conversation with him instead of taking him out of the dorm room. At this point, I was pissed. What if we hadn't been in a place where we could lock the door? What if we were outside or something? Would they still have taken 25 fucking minutes to show up? The man told them he hadn't been drinking or smoking or doing anything, that he was completely fine. They continued to question him, only to have him get more and more violent. Finally, they had to escort the man out when he began to fight with one of the cops. We could hear everything through the door. The campus security finally knocked, telling us it was safe to come out now. When we opened the door, something fell off and hit the floor. The cop's eyes widened as he realized what it was. It was a fucking pocket knife that had been lodged into the door. Not only did these idiots take 25 minutes to show up, they didn't even check the man or the surrounding area to see if there was a weapon. What a joke. Leia started to cry as we left the room. The security decided to check the rest of the dorm room. Lo and behold, they found a crumpled up ball of tinfoil with what looked to be drugs in it. What a great investigative job. The dude was methed out of his mind or something with a pocket knife, and all they could say was have a safe night before leaving on their way. Safe night my ass. We were all complaining to the campus next week about how the situation was handled, mainly because I know this man is still there. I saw him walking down the road just yesterday, like nothing had ever happened. Man, fuck campus security, and fuck that methed out man. This story happened 26 years ago in the San Francisco Bay Area, actually closer to Half Moon Bay, 95 or 96, I'm not too sure exactly. It was late on a Friday night. I was living in the Bay Area and going to graduate school soon. It had also been a very busy week. My roommates all decided to go out clubbing to celebrate, but I decided I was just going to stay home and relax and wind down a bit. It was probably around 10 or 11 at night, too late to really do anything I found fun. I got a wild hair and decided I would drive over to the ocean. I was living in Castro Valley, and I had been to Half Moon Bay a few times before, so I decided that would be a nice relaxing drive. About an hour and a half at night, but why not, you know? I'd go over and go for a walk on the beach at night for a little while and just chill in the ocean breeze. By the time I got there, it was getting pretty late, around 1 a.m. or so. What I hadn't realized is they actually locked up the parking lots at night so you could not go down to the beach in your car. Ah, dang. I started heading south on Highway 1 instead. I passed a few other pullouts, but they all had locked gates as well. Instead, I went up this hill where there was a dirt pullout. I thought I could at least hike back down the hill to reach the beach. It was only a couple 100 yards below after all. Obviously, I'm not one to get scared very easily, since I was out doing this all alone at night. This wasn't even the first time I'd done something like this, nor would it be the last either. After hiking down the hill about 30 feet or so, I stumbled into a patch of briars. I tried to keep going, but it was really tearing me up. It was really dark as well, so I couldn't really avoid them. I decided I'd just head back to the car and find a better spot to climb down. By the time I managed to make it back up to the top of this hill though, I just about poked my head over, and I could see there was now another car parked right beside mine. Weird, I thought. My gut immediately told me something was off here, so instead of going to my car right away, I hunkered down behind the hill and just sort of watched. It was really dark out, overcast as well. There had been 0 cars on the road the entire time there, so my eyes were pretty well adjusted to the darkness. I was pretty close to the 2 cars. On a slight hill just over the pullout, I could see down into the other vehicle. They had some interior dash lights that were giving off a bit of a glow, so I could make out their face. Sitting in the vehicle was this middle-aged, normal-looking guy. He was absolutely staring at my car though, like it was ice-cold water and he'd been lost in the desert for days. I don't really know how to explain it, other than as soon as I saw the look on his face, I could tell he was bad news. I laid down in the grass and shrubs to make sure he couldn't see me in the darkness, and I just watched him. I watched him sit there and watch my car waiting for me to come back. I decided it was not smart to go until he'd finally left. I waited and waited and waited. After about 15 or 20 minutes, I saw a glow on the crest of the hill on the highway. Another car was coming, the first I'd seen since I'd pulled over. Anyone that's driven down this road knows that if you're behind someone going slow, you're pretty much stuck behind them for a long while. This can lead to groups of cars being bunched up together. This is what started happening. Coming over the hill, it was just car after car as they crested over. Their taillights lit up the entire area with light. I quickly jumped up and sprinted to my car. I ripped the door open, and as I jumped in, I started it up in one motion. I could see the man's face. It was a look of anger like I've never seen since. I was able to pull out quickly and be the last car in that procession as we made our way back to Half Moon Bay. I left all the details on that I can remember. I still think about this event every now and again and wonder, but I've never been able to find any mentions of other suspicious goings-on there in this time frame. I thought I'd post it here for all of you to hear and see if anyone else ever heard anything about that area in time. Such a weird experience. I currently live in a smaller, rural-ish town. It's pretty far removed, but it still has plenty of good shopping and eating options and some public spaces as well. We even have a few breweries and bars now. It's a newly hip place, with farming on the outskirts so I can get my eggs and veggies fresh from the source as well. The pandemic really hurt business locally though, and pretty much the only regular delivery option was Walmart and Amazon for a minute. I was pretty stoked when much later, more local options popped up on various apps. However, at this time for main necessities and grocery items, there weren't really any options beside getting a store delivery from the Walmart in the town over. This meant a lot of people you didn't know well popping through, and it drove some of the older folks absolutely crazy. All over the neighborhood they were talking about cars and people they didn't recognize non-stop. I embraced it pretty readily though. It certainly made my life easier, so it was great for a bit. At this point, I lived with my teenage son who was very gangly and about 6'4". Then my boyfriend was staying to be near his elderly parents as well. He was broadly built. It was a tiny space, and I felt a little bit cramped with these huge guys always trundling around. Once in a while, I'd send them off on an errand for me, or they'd go and visit my boyfriend's parents together to give me a little bit of space to work on things. One of those days, I happened to get a delivery. I recognized this guy and said hello to him. Tipped him well, too. Then I just went about my life. An hour later, though, he was right back at my door. It was kind of weird and creepy as well. I had steps in front of my door, but no porch. He would knock and stand beside the steps where I couldn't see him through the peephole. I could see him through my window that he was next to, though. I couldn't tell if he was hiding and didn't know I could see him or what. I talked through the window. Hello, can I help you? I had the window film over the lower window for privacy, but I could stand on my couch and see through the upper part above people's heads. He kept on trying to look at where my voice was coming from, before answering and telling me he'd forgotten a bag in the delivery. I confirmed I'd gotten it all though and thanked him. He left, and I didn't want to open the door again after he noticed I was alone. I got new neighbors after, directly in the unit across from me. They happened to have a Ring camera. She reached out to me at one point and told me someone had come by knocking and sat on my front steps for about a half an hour. I was over at my boyfriend's house with my son at the time. She sent me the Ring camera video to double check. It looked exactly like that guy, around 8 p.m. too, and I didn't have any open orders. I reached out to Walmart, but they were totally unhelpful, of course. They told me they'd be making sure he didn't deliver anything to me in the future, but wouldn't give me any info I could pass on to police in case anything further happened. I wanted to at least file a report with security in case anything happened again, because this felt like a really weird situation. They told me the police would need to reach out though. I had a feeling this would escalate further, and it really did. I didn't want to be home alone anymore. I didn't order delivery. I tried to cover my bases myself. However, that couldn't stop my neighbors from ordering as well. Somehow, it always came through that guy again. He would be on the property anyway, just 3 feet away from my door. Creepy thing was, I could hear him dropping off the neighbor's stuff, and I had an urge to look through the peephole, only to see him standing right in front of my stairs, staring at my door and trying to look in through my windows. He stood there for 5 minutes until my neighbor upended the door to get her groceries. I told her that was the same guy from the Ring camera. She contacted Walmart too and asked he didn't deliver anything anymore to our area. A few weeks went by and Christmas was just around the corner. I had ordered a few items from Amazon and they'd all be arriving together. I knew they were on my front porch. I could hear them being carried and dropped by the delivery guy. I went over to check and made sure to watch until he walked off. My boyfriend was on the couch with his headphones on working, and I was cooking dinner at the moment. I figured I'd just grab them in a minute. They'd surely be fine on my steps for just a moment. Plus, there was a camera there if anything happened. 5 minutes tops. I finished plating and brought the food in. As I was setting the plates down, the front doorknob, which wasn't locked at the moment, gave a tiny turn. The deadbolt was latched, but the knob wasn't. I could hear it turning but not opening. My boyfriend couldn't hear over his music though. I pointed it out to him. He took his headphones off and peeked over the top of the window. "Oh, were you hearing things maybe? No one's touching the doorknob right now and no one's out there either." He walked over and ripped the door open just to show me there was nothing there. But there stood the man again, this time crouched up against the wall underneath the window, hands still on the knob trying to turn it silently. He looked mortified to see my boyfriend opening the door. When my son came up too, he looked really startled. He asked for me. He must have known my name from the deliveries because he used the name I had on my account, which isn't a name everyone knows me by. My boyfriend got angry and asked what he needed. The guy reached down and picked up the Amazon box, said delivery, handed it off, and then left. It was really unnerving. I tried to explain to my boyfriend that he had not delivered those boxes. They'd already been there. We took the footage to the police, and I tried to reach out to Walmart once again. The police told me they'd reached out too and just gotten a bunch of clueless basic customer service agents with no idea how to proceed. If he came back, I'd need to call the real police so they could come get him in person this time. I was really scared, of course. I was glad he knew I wasn't in the house alone now, but I felt like he might take more drastic measures, knowing that too. The sprinkler system automatically kicked in at 11 p.m. It cycled through the plot of land for about an hour. It started at my bedroom wall, which faced the parking lot. By midnight, it had gone around the entire space in tandem and reached the front lawn space to the right of my front door. I was in bed when I heard it click on. It was usually noisy because it hit the gravel too. It made a lot of sounds. When it switched off to the next area, I heard a strange shuffling. We have a lot of stray cats outside, so I wasn't too alarmed at first. There's one window at the side of my home that faces the front lawn spots, but it's blocked off by a large entertainment system. It was the only blocked window I had, and beside my bedroom window, it was the only one not visible from the Ring camera. The next morning, when I was leaving for work, the window screens had been removed and placed beneath the windows. There were handprints smudged all over the glass as well. No clear footprints, just deep, muddy sloshes where a person had clearly been. I filed another report, but they were similarly unhelpful. They basically told me I needed to get another camera and stay up to make sure I could see it happening, then call it in. Didn't even bother trying to contact Walmart again. Completely useless. The last thing to happen was when my boyfriend was coming over pretty late. He just worked a really long day and came over around 3 a.m. I knew he was supposed to be coming soon, but suddenly I was woken up by the sound of fierce fighting outside. He had pulled into the parking lot as promised, only to find the guy underneath my car. He'd scrambled under when my boyfriend's car was pulling in. He pretended to walk to the front door, only to watch the guy slide out and try to hide behind the parked cars. It looked like he was trying to mess with mine as well. He attacked the guy and I called the police. There was an air tag taped under my car. He was trying to track me away from my house. The man was arrested with plenty of charges, but I didn't really hear anything else from it after. I gave statements and incident report numbers, and I was told I might need to testify, but it never happened. I never had any incidents with him since then though, so I'm grateful for that.